Good morning and welcome to the Intellect IAS. And today in this class, we are going to discuss another topic of NCERT and its government and its organs. Okay, the textbook of NCERT is government and its organs. So in this class, the next topic of this book is which we need to discuss legislature or general profile. Legislature or general profile. So this is our topic of today. And when NCERT starts to write on this topic, first of all, NCERT says or writes that there is no any uniformity in the names of legislature, but if in any particular political system there is only one house, and it means unicameralism is there. If one house is there, then that is named usually as the assembly. Okay, so first thing, what is said by or what is written in your text NCERT, thank you Mr. Neeraj, thank you and very good morning. So the legislature's general profile in this topic, what NCERT said are written: no uniformity in the names of legislature. Second thing, it says if there is unicameral system, that is single house, then that is named as assembly. But if there are two houses in the legislature of a particular country, then there is the variation or the differences in the names. Okay. Now, after this, NCERT writes about the functions of the legislature. It directly comes to the topic functions. So, when we see or when we read the functions from our NCERT, then it writes that the functions of the legislature depend on the principle on which it is constituted. Means on the basis of which principle any particular legislature has been constituted, that determines the functions of the legislature. With, or we can say in this respect, there are three types of systems based on some basic principles for the creation of legislature. So these three systems are following. The first one is Autocratic means autocrat. Autocratic system, or monarchical system, or bureaucratic government. Bureaucratic government. So NCERT writes that if the system is autocrat or monarch or of bureaucratic government, then that may have legislature only or merely as a consultative body. So, if there is the autocratic system or monarchical, means there is kingship, or there is a ruler like Adolf Hitler, okay, or bureaucratic. This is what you need to understand: bureaucratic government. Actually, bureaucratic government, this is inherent in NCERT. We need to learn it. NCERT doesn't write here what it meant for. Doesn't write. So, which government can be called as bureaucratic government? So, that kind of government which is under the command and control of the bureaucracy. And here bureaucracy includes all. Bureaucracy includes all means bureaucracy includes all type of government officials. They may be army officials, they may be police personnel, they may be civil servant also. So such type of bureaucratic government was formed several times in Pakistan when the army general became the president. Whether he was Musharraf or Yahya Khan or Ayub Khan. Anyway. So what? When bureaucracy takes the control of the government, so in that case also that dominates, and that also becomes kind of autocratic. वो भी निरंकुश ही हो जाता है. Okay? So in this type of, or in any one of these type of governments, the legislature may be created or may be treated only as a consultative body. So what happens? Okay, तो legislature क्या हो गया? Legislature becomes just like our legislature may be formed only or merely as a consultative body, and if it is created or considered or treated only or merely as a consultative body, then what will be there? Just see, there will be hegemony or the dominance of these type of rulers over. So legislature becomes kind of subordinate to the ruler. Okay? So it becomes a subordinate body. ठीक है? जैसा वो कहेगा वैसा ये करेगी. Okay? चलिए. So this is the first system. So it is based on the exploitative principle of rule. or you can say autocratic monarch, जो भी कह लीजिए, but their actual nature is or was or has been exploitative. ठीक है, शोषणकारी होता है. Secondly, secondly means the second system that is known as parliamentary form of government. Parliamentary form of government. तो in the parliamentary form of government क्या हो जाएगा? Executive becomes subordinate to the legislature. Executive becomes subordinate to legislature. It means that in the parliamentary form of democratic governments, the will of legislature becomes supreme. The will of legislature becomes supreme. In other words, legislature, or the name as it is parliament, becomes the supreme organ of the government. What parliament wants to do, it does. What parliament wants to make as a law, it makes. Okay? So, in the parliamentary form of government, and I have discussed in the previous classes also that how in the parliamentary form of government, the government becomes, means the executive body comes from the parliament only, and the parliament controls the executive. Though there is no any direct participation of the parliament in the control of executive, but that controls. Okay, we have discussed. So this type of government we can see in England, in India, in France. Okay, several countries which are having parliamentary form of government. The third system is known as the systems based on the principle of balancing of authority. The systems are the government formed on the basis of the principle of balancing of authority. And the example of the balancing of authority is the system of USA. United States of America is the best example of this system, balancing of authority. What happens in US? Congress can neither control the executive directly, means Congress cannot control the executive directly, nor can make laws to amend the Constitution. It means that in USA, the amendment to the Constitution is not easier. It can only be done with the consent of more than half of the states of USA. Means the amendment in the Constitution of US is not easy, because Congress is not having the complete authority. But the inherent thing is here. Then if you compare this system with the parliamentary form of government system, then you can say that in England or in Britain, everything can change. Any amendment can be made by the parliament. तो वहां क्या है? वहां बैलेंसिंग ऑफ अथॉरिटी नहीं है. In England, balancing of authority, there is no balancing of authority, but there is supremacy of the parliament. But in US, there is balancing of authority. And we have adopted balancing of authority in some manner or in certain aspects. In India also, we'll see later. Chaliye. So balancing of authority. So here, Congress can neither control the executive nor can make laws to amend the constitution. Okay. Now, the NCERT goes further to discuss the functions of the legislature. It means that to make it clear that what kind of functions can be found in any in any particular legislative body or in any particular legislature, it depends upon these three principles, and thereafter NCERT writes or tells us what the functions are of the legislature. Okay, so functions has been categorized into several type of functions in the NCERT, and the first one is mentioned as the primary function. As the primary function of legislature. And regarding this primary function of legislature, it writes that the primary function is to make law. Thereafter, second aspect, to repeal those laws which are not suited to the present, suited or suitable to present age, and to make them conform to the exigencies of time. Okay, and you might have heard that the present government of India has repealed thousands of the laws which were outdated, which were lost their relevance, and if any law, and most of them were not suitable to the present age. That is why the government decided to repeal them, thousands of laws. And it has been even said by the Mr. Prime Minister in open meetings also. In his speeches, he mentioned several times. Okay. Second, now the second function of legislature, it is the primary function. Means the primary function can be related with the functions from the very early stage when the legislature was formed. But as the societies or the countries or the nations forwarded themselves towards the democratization, the functions of the legislature expanded and broadened. So that is why there are several other functions of legislature in the present modern democratic liberal governments. Okay, so the second function is taxative function. मीन्स टैक्स लगाने और इन सब के लिए, उनको वसूलने के लिए. तो अंडर दिस NCERT writes legislature determines the methods of raising money, methods of raising money means through which method the taxes can be taken by the government from the people or the public is determined by the legislature. Secondly, the amount to be raised is also determined by the legislature. The amount to be raised, कितना पैसा टैक्स के रूप में लिया जाएगा, हाउ मच मनी or any particular sector shall be or should be taxed, up to what extent is also determined by the legislature. Okay. Thereafter, the manner in which the collected amount or the revenue collected through taxes can be spent. Okay. So the methods to spend the money is also determined by the legislature. So under the taxative functions, these comes. So it is also to be said that actually these functions are performed under the budget procedure in the parliament or in the legislature. In the legislature. Okay? Chaliye. So these things are basically related the budget in fact. Okay? चलिए फाइनेंशियल मैटर्स हो जाते हैं ये. थर्ड फंक्शन according to NCERT. Acha, one more thing here I would like to tell you that in most of the constitutions where there is the parliamentary form of government or where there is legislature, but that is democratic. That is in democratic system, not in autocratic and other bureaucratic or crownship. So if the system is democratic, then in almost all type of systems, there is the system of control of legislature over public money. Actually, the public money, custodian, it is called as the custodian of public money. Legislature is considered, or you can say work or functions as the custodian of public purse or public money. For example, the Constitution of India provides a provision that no money can be deposited or withdrawal in the कंसोलिडेटेड फंड ऑफ इंडिया. और कंसोलिडेटेड फंड ऑफ इंडिया क्या होता है? वही इंडिया का राज. ओके, बात आएगी कहीं और तो बात करेंगे, अभी आप समझ लें. फिर उसके बाद है थर्ड कंट्रोल, थर्ड फंक्शन कंट्रोल over domestic and foreign policies, over domestic and foreign policies, foreign policy, domestic policy is controlled through finance, if the legislature will not approve the money required to implement any particular domestic policy, that cannot be implemented. And the foreign policy is also dependent upon the legislature. As I have told you in the previous class, that if any particular treaty or agreement with a foreign country is not approved by the legislature, then that cannot be implemented. Similarly, if any particular treaty or agreement with a particular foreign country or a foreign body requires any type of money, then that will also be approved by the legislature. So here you can say that, or you can understand that it controls domestic and foreign policy also. Thereafter, in the control mechanism, other control is controls the executive body. It controls the executive body through questions, resolutions, motions, etc. है ना? नो कॉन्फिडेंस मोशन बहुत सारा चीज है. क्वेश्चन आर होता है, 0R, several type of. Okay, so it controls, the legislature controls the executive body. Thereafter, after the control functions, in the controlling the parliamentary system, to control the executive body in the parliamentary system, there are several other devices also. Apart from the legislature, means the parliament, there are several other devices such as parliamentary committees, है ना? तो वो भी आप पढ़ेंगे बाद में कभी. चलिए, नेक्स्ट फंक्शन अकॉर्डिंग टू दी, I think it is fourth, according to the NCERT, judicial functions. Means there are certain functions or certain things in which legislature acts or functions or perform the functions as the judiciary. And you might be knowing that in the impeachment of the president, legislature works or functions as the judiciary also, because there is no power given to the judiciary, neither the High Court nor the Supreme Court, to intervene in the process of the removal of the president, means impeachment of the president. And legislature inquires into the issue, and thereafter legislature decides whether the president can or should be impeached or not. समझे? तो ये क्या हो गया? Judicial functions. Similarly, the judicial functions is also found in the removal of the judges. Okay. Several books write the term impeachment in relation with the removal of the judges also. ठीक है, तो इसमें भी वही काम करता है. So after discussing these functions, NCERT further writes that thus it is clear that thus the most important functions, now the most important functions are going to be mentioned. The most important functions of the legislature are as follows. पहला फंक्शन बताते हैं आपका एनसीईआरटी legislation. Under the legislation, what kind of functions? So lawmaking, basic function, lawmaking. Thereafter, amendments. Thereafter, approval to ordinances. The approval of ordinance. Approval of ordinance. Okay. Thereafter, some miscellaneous function. So this is mentioned in your NCERT book as the legislation or legislative functions of the legislature. Thereafter, the second function is mentioned as finance, and under the finance it is written that it says that the legislature is the custodian of public purse, and I have mentioned or I have discussed this issue also. So under the finance, custodian of public purse. How it becomes custodian of public purse? I have told you just few minutes back that no, neither the money can be withdrawn nor can be deposited into the Consolidated Fund of India without the permission of the Parliament or the legislature. Okay. Thereafter, third function is mentioned in the NCERT as the participation in the process of election or selection of the executives and some executive heads and judicial heads. Okay, ये कहता है कि executive in the selection or selection of executive and judicial heads. So in USA, the Chief Justice of Federal Court is also selected with the participation of the Congress. Shabd Mehla. Good morning, Mr. Shabd Mehla. Okay, judicial heads के जुडिशियल हेड्स के सिलेक्शन में कांग्रेस का रोल होता है. एंड कांग्रेस में स्पेसिफिकली किसका रोल रहेगा आपको पता है. आई हैव टोल्ड यू दैट the Senate is more powerful than the House of Representative in USA. ओके, तो आपको ये अच्छे से पता है, आप इसको अच्छे से जानते हैं, पहले से जानते हैं. तो और एग्जीक्यूटिव्स के इलेक्शन में इंडिया में भी आप जानते हैं, द प्रेसिडेंट इन द इलेक्शन ऑफ द प्रेसिडेंट बोथ द हाउसेस पार्टिसिपेट, लोकसभा एंड राज्यसभा, and the members of the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha vote, though elected only, but they vote in the election of the president. Okay, ये ध्यान रखेंगे. Thereafter, supervision and control of executive. Supervision and control. Supervision and control of executive. Okay, but always remember that in this function of this supervision and control, legislature does not involve directly, or you can say legislature does not participate directly. उसका डायरेक्ट पार्टिसिपेशन नहीं होता है. ठीक है, इनडायरेक्ट कंट्रोल है, ये आपको आगे चल के कहीं भी पता चलेगा. Thereafter, judicial function. So again, you have studied just few minutes before, and the important functions में आ गया judicial functions, and it means that judicial functions means that the functions like judiciary in the impeachment of the president and the judicial heads. Thereafter, the next function is mentioned as representative role. So the next one is important functions का अगला क्या है? Representative role. So NCERT writes that legislature plays the role of representative role of legislature. What is this? We know that in the legislature, who becomes the members in the legislature? So, representatives of people, and you know well that representatives are elected by us. We elect our representatives and we send them to the legislature. So how they represent us, that is basically the representative role of legislature. How our representatives represent us, collectively that becomes the representative role of the legislature, because legislature is a body of people's representative. Clear? So how they represent us? How? They represent us first of all from the local level. They are sent to the apex level if they are in the parliament or in the Congress, apex level. So the local needs and demands, local needs and demands and issues are presented in the legislature, means at the apex level, and when they ask any question related with any issue or when they raise the demand, they put the demand of that particular level, then the apex level means the upper level, ये level, okay, यानी कि the body, or you can say the parliament, okay, respond it through the ministers, means executive यहाँ respond करता है, and executive gives the answer or assures that that particular need or the demand will be addressed, है ना, फिर वो टाइम भी बताता है, बहुत कुछ करता है, ओके. So this is this type of representation is ensured, and that is why it is representative role of the legislature. Now, another function as mentioned in the NCERT, and that is legislature delegates its authority to execute. And with this respect, we are well known that the legislature, executive, or you can write here administrative bodies also. Administrative bodies also. And we are well known about this, that the legislature delegates its lawmaking authority to the executive body or the administrative body, and the administrative body writes the rules and other aspects of that particular law. तो इस तरह से ये हो गया delegation of authority to executive or administrative bodies. Thereafter, there is miscellaneous function. Miscellaneous functions. Okay? So, NCERT writes there are some miscellaneous functions also that cannot be categorized as a particular function, but they are done by the legislature. Okay? So, these are the functions of the legislature mentioned in NCERT. And when I gone through with the previous questions, I have seen several questions asked from these only. The questions, several times the questions were asked from the functions of the legislature which are mentioned in the NCERT, specifically in preliminary exam. But there is another topic given in this in a row in this topic itself, in this discussion itself, which is purely the topic of main exam. और थोड़ा याद आ गया है, मैं एक बात और आप लोगों से कह दूं, 13 onwards the classes will be paid, and it is very good for us that we are going to have our app also, Intellect IS app will also be there. Well, very soon, though not well developed, but that will be good enough. In the development, that will take a much more time. Perhaps they will deliver me the completely developed application, means app, in October first week. But before that, we will get very soon. So here, one more request also, that please make aware your known, your relatives, that Intellect IAS is providing what kind of class, classic class on NCERT, and ask them to join, and the fee is very low. You also knowing only 6,250 instead of 12,500. So I hope that you people will do that. Thank you. Tomorrow class, as I was just mentioning, that another topic which is very much related with the main exam, and that topic is devices of direct legislation. Usually you used to listen the name or the terms and the terminologies like plebiscite, recall, referendum, etc., etc., etc. So all these terms and terminologies that you used to listen are very important. Okay? और ये डायरेक्ट लेजिस्लेशन की क्लास में ही है. We'll discuss tomorrow the direct legislation, which is a very interesting topic. You'll enjoy and very informative also. Thank you for the day. Thank you.